Greetings, Mossy Bottomers. Welcome back once again. The first thing I'd like to say at the start of this video is a huge thank you to everyone who purchased a Mossy Bottom 2021 calendar. The entire print run sold out in about 5 days, much to my astonishment. And after a crazy, and it really was crazy, few weeks, signing cards and wrapping parcels, all the calendars are now shipped and on their way to you. A few of you have contacted me since they sold out, asking if more will be made available. And unfortunately, it's unlikely because printing the calendars is only really affordable for me if I do quite a lot at a time, if I do a fairly big batch. But if you would still like a calendar, then send me a quick message in Etsy, which is the platform through which I was selling them. And there's a link down below in the description. And if I get enough requests, I will order another print run. But it's kind of dependent on how many I get, so I can't guarantee it. And if that doesn't happen, don't worry, I definitely plan on making another calendar for 2022. In fact, I'm already getting really excited about designing it and taking the pictures. So hopefully the Mossy Bottom calendar will be something to look forward to every year at the beginning of winter. And if you can hear purring in the background, by the way, then you can probably guess it's coming from these two. I hope they're not distorting the sound quality too much. But anyway, on to today's video, which I've entitled Stuff, Space and Time. And don't worry, it's got nothing to do with theoretical physics, I wouldn't dare. Although I am going to try and take on three fairly big questions, which I'm often asked in different ways, relating very much to quitting the rat race and living a simpler life, which I've tried to do. The first question relating to stuff is very much a practical one. What do you need to live self-sufficiently? Is it a minimalistic lifestyle? The second question relating to space is really all about living in a caravan, which is what I've been doing now for several years. And I know that's unimaginable to a lot of people, especially for that length of time. So I want to talk about why it's worked for me, and maybe from that you could work out if it would be suitable for you too. And finally, the big one, time, which I think is probably the most important resource we each have to manage in our lives. Forget money, that comes and goes. Time, that only goes. So how do you manage it when trying to live self-sufficiently as I do? What are the priorities? So let's jump straight in, not to the icy water behind me, but to the questions and talk about stuff. I think there's a romantic notion, which I've seen it in volunteers, and I probably had it too before moving here, that a self-sufficient life, growing food, keeping animals, restoring old stone buildings, is a very minimalistic life. But the reality is very different. And I think one of the things which most surprises people who come and stay with me and may have similar aspirations themselves to become self-sufficient is quite how much stuff you do need to be able to support yourself in this way. I'm going to give you a good example, which is why I'm standing here right now, and that's water. There is no piped water connection to my piece of land. So like the old lady who once lived here before me and I talked about in the cottage videos, I gather water from this spring. Now when I first moved here, I did that with buckets, which was a very slow, exhausting job, which needed doing every couple of days in order to fill a 200-litre barrel with water up near the cottage, which is quite a hike up there, up a hill. And I did that for about a year until I finally invested in a small electric well pump, which sits in this spring. You might be able to see it in the background, I'm not sure. It is in the water right now. It's connected to a hose pipe, which runs all the way up to an IBC tank. That's a 1,000-litre water tank behind the caravan. I filter the water before it goes into the tank, treat it with chlorine tablets for safety, and I should add, it's not for drinking, it's just for washing and bathing. And that was Moss in the background, chewing and choking, I think, on a stick. I then use a different type of water pump in the caravan, one which has a pressure switch, allowing it to turn itself on and off automatically when the water's being used, either by my shower, which I have in there, or one of several taps, like this one, which I have set up outside. And you can hear the pump running in the background. Now all these pumps are 12 volt, which means I need to use a car or a leisure battery to operate them. And those batteries have to be charged, of course, which is one of the things I use my solar panels for. The solar panels themselves need to be at a particular angle which changes throughout the year in order to optimize the electricity they're able to generate. So I had to make this adjustable frame which supports them. And of course, there are dozens of little things which make all the above possible. Hose clips and funnels, chlorine dispensers, electrical cables, charge controllers, not to mention all the tools needed to assemble and maintain everything. Now I know what you're thinking, wouldn't it be easier to just stick with the buckets? Well, the problem with that, and I did do it for a year, very much relates to the third question I'm going to tackle in this video, and that's time. Because there are only so many hours in the day, and the more time that you spend hauling buckets of water up a hill, the less time you have to work on other really important jobs like maintaining the vegetable garden, restoration work, making videos like this. So the other alternative, why not just get a mains water connection? And there are two reasons for that. The nearest mains water connection to me is 1 kilometre away, and it would be many thousands of euro to extend that to my land. But more than that, I love knowing that no matter what happens, I will always have a supply of water. And even here in Ireland, the sun never stops shining like today, not entirely anyway, so I will always have a way with these to supply myself with water and pump it to where I need it with electricity. That's what self-sufficiency is all about for me, not being dependent on a system which I have no control over. And it's that independence from a system, at least with some aspects of life, not all admittedly, which for me at least is so fulfilling. But striking that balance between time and stuff is a really hard one, which I wrestle with every year in various different ways. One thing's for sure though, a self-sufficient life is not one free from the need for tools, equipment and resources. Perhaps if we were still nomads living like our hunter-gatherer ancestors used to, wandering the forests, then to a greater extent it would be, but that's just not the reality of living on a small holding like I do. Now on the subject of stuff and sustainability, this video is sponsored by EcoCart. And EcoCart is a simple browser extension for Google Chrome, which gives you the option, whenever you're making an online purchase from a participating retailer, to make that purchase carbon neutral without paying a cent more or a penny more yourself. And if all that sounds a bit too good to be true, then don't worry, you're not alone, because it did to me too. What actually happens behind the scenes is that the retailer pays a small commission to EcoCart for the sale, which they then donate to ecological projects around the world to offset the carbon footprint, i.e. the impact of shipping for that purchase. And those projects include planting forests in Massachusetts, the provision of clean water in Cambodia, and creating wind energy in Turkey. Of course, they take a portion of that commission too, but you as the buyer pay exactly the same amount for the product that you want to buy. In fact, you can even earn money back vouchers the more you use the service. Those of you who purchased a Mossy Bottom calendar may have noticed, if you really were paying attention, in the dispatch confirmation that Etsy, the retailer I used, also offsets the carbon footprint for sales. Well, EcoCart works on exactly the same principle, except it forces retailers to pay a few cents more to do the same thing. And that has got to be a step in the right direction when it comes to living sustainably, especially in this age where many of us, including me, do most of our shopping online. It's kind of unavoidable living out here. Of course, it's not going to save the planet in one fell swoop, but if you'd make those purchases anyway, then why not support positive causes at the same time? There are over 10,000 participating retailers, and of course it's completely free to use. So if you're interested, there's a link down in the description where you can find out more. And now for the question of space. So it may well surprise you, after what I've said earlier in this video, to learn that I am at heart a minimalist. When it comes to non-essential things, I'm very much of the view that less is more. The things which I buy are all practical, functional things which I need to support this lifestyle. Beyond that, everything that I own fits comfortably, believe it or not, into this little caravan. I have 2 small shelves of clothes, which is why you keep seeing me in the same t-shirt or jumper in these videos. The only gadgets that I have relate to my video making, and the only ornaments I have are things which I've made myself. I do have quite a few books, probably more than I should. Used to be at least a bit of a collector. They're kind of a legacy of my past life before moving here, but they still all fit on a few shelves in the caravan, so there's not that many. I have a guitar hanging up on the ceiling, and of course the bare minimum of functional equipment like saucepans, a frying pan, knives and forks, towels, each with its own allocated space. That's how you have to live in a caravan. You have to be very rigid in the use of space. The hardest thing actually about living in a small space is the lack of worktop for cooking and doing other practical things. I'm a doer by nature, and there isn't a whole lot you can do in a caravan this small. But I have my animals, I have my land, and of course I have my cottage and outbuildings to work on and in, which more than makes up for that. So very little of my time is really spent in the caravan, especially in the warmer months. It's December right now, although you wouldn't know it with that beautiful sun out, but in the warmer months, I basically live outside. The caravan's a place to sleep, eat on a cold day, and work on my laptop. In the winter, it's a place to kind of cozy up and semi-hibernate, dreaming of the spring to come. And when you're invested in the land and the animals that you care for, you don't need the place that you rest your head at night to be any grander than that. Now, that's not to say that I don't have grand plans in my own way for the cottage restoration, because I certainly want to create something beautiful and practical, which both pays homage to the origins of that building, whilst also introducing some of the technologies of my lifetime, like roof windows to let much more light in, renewable energy sources, and of course insulation to conserve heat and try and live more sustainably. But living in a caravan, especially this particular caravan, which I rebuilt from the inside out when I first acquired it to suit my particular way of life, this entire front wall had to come off. It was all rotten. I had to rebuild the timber frame, put new plywood up, new insulation, replace the windows. And of course the whole interior I rebuilt at the same time, so I customized it to my particular needs. The point is, we're all incredibly adaptable, far more so than we give ourselves credit for, and I suspect that imagining what it would be like to live without those home comforts that most of us are used to is far harder than the day-to-day reality of not having them. We adapt to a different rhythm of life with different priorities. And I think that's what's happened to me, very much for the better. And finally, time, the big question. And I think one of the things which constantly surprises you guys, the people who watch my videos, is how slow the restoration work is here. And there'll be some of you sat there thinking, well, that's just because you're a lazy bugger and you don't work hard. And I can't convince you otherwise. I assure you that's not the case. Most days I work dawn till dusk, non-stop, and I think any of the many volunteers who've been here over the years would vouch for that. But the question of time is definitely a really interesting one. Moving to the countryside and pursuing a simpler, less stressful life, I think is becoming increasingly popular. We're sort of at the beginning of a re-ruralization, certainly in more developed parts of the world, which is made possible to a large extent by the availability of 21st century technologies like renewable energy and high-speed internet. But the vast majority of people moving to a property similar to mine put all the emphasis on completing the house first and focusing very much on the land second as an afterthought. It's as if people's lives are on hold until that house is ready to live in, with all the home comforts that they were used to before moving there. And whilst I understand that approach, because It's very hard to imagine not having a bathtub if you've always had a bathtub, or an oven, or a table, or a sofa, or a flushing toilet for that matter. I still don't have one. I don't believe in living my life in anticipation of something, because I think that's just a recipe for stress and anxiety. I want to live my life in a way that makes the most of every day and focuses on the things that bring me fulfillment, the things that I do have, not the things that I don't have. And in order to do that, you have to find joy in the small things, not allow the big things which you think you need to control you. Now, that's not to say that I operate at a slow pace, as I mentioned earlier, because I'm active 7 days a week from dawn till dusk, doing the things which I love, caring for animals, nurturing the land, building things and restoring things, maintaining things, as well as, of course, making videos like this one, trying to share what I'm doing, and pursuing further education. I'm still finishing up my horticulture course at college, so I'm really busy. It's non-stop. And every month I have new projects and goals which I push as hard as I can to accomplish, and I enjoy that challenge. And every year, slowly, I get to see Mossy Bottom, my home, evolve into the unique and beautiful space which I've always envisioned it becoming. And it slowly is becoming that. But it's the process which is my fulfillment, not the destination, and that's the key point. If you focus too much on the destination, it's only going to cause you stress and anxiety. Celebrate what you have. Enjoy that process. Because it's in all those little everyday pleasures, seeing a new animal born, or a seedling pop up through the soil, harvesting the first apple from a newly planted tree, or seeing the pleasure of my pigs, which I got to have a few days ago when I give them fresh straw on a cold winter's night. I remember for a decade before I moved here, waking up every morning to the sound of my alarm clock with a sense of absolute dread at having to go to work doing something I didn't find meaningful or engaging, with no end in sight. That was my life effectively until I reached retirement. And a big part of changing my lifestyle as dramatically as I have was in order to be free of that feeling, to be able to wake up every morning to the sun rising instead of an alarm blaring in my ear, on my own schedule, in my own way. And in order to do that, you have to be willing to let go of that sense of urgency to achieve, to tick boxes, which society burdens us with. And that doesn't mean to say you have to grow your hair long and turn into a hippie. I'm kind of halfway there already, aren't I? But you do, I believe, have to allow time to become your friend, not your enemy. At least that's my philosophy. And of course, my life is far from perfect. I've never in these videos claimed it is, or tried to present my life as some kind of utopia. I still get things wrong every day and learn from my mistakes. And just like everyone else, my priorities and beliefs, they aren't rigid. They grow up and evolve as I do. The person I am now is different to the person that I was when making that first video 2.5 years ago. But contrary to what I remember a few people writing in the comments, this lifestyle, it hasn't broken me, it's made me. Okay folks, that's just about it for this video. Thank you as always for watching, for subscribing, and for supporting the channel, as I know you all do. Have a very mossy Christmas. Stay safe, stay warm, and I'll see you on the other side. Bye for now. The first thing I would like to say in this video is a huge thank you while I'm being attacked by this cat. A few of you have asked me in comments how Moss gets on with the cats and how they get on with him. Well, the honest answer is at this stage very well. I don't think he liked them initially, and I had to keep them in the caravan for a few weeks as kittens until he got used to their presence and their smell. But we've reached a point now where really all he tries to do is herd them, and Moss tries to herd every animal, including people sometimes, that he ever sees, so I knew that was going to be the case. And as the saying goes, you can't herd a cat, so it doesn't usually go very far, and he gets frustrated. But he's sort of learnt to just ignore them as time has gone by. And as you can see now, he's very, very relaxed around them, and they're very relaxed around him too. And there's no aggression. The only time he gets a bit, things get a bit tense is when Moss is eating his dinner and the cats try to sort of nosy in and have a sniff. He doesn't like that, and it doesn't usually end well for them. But they're still alive, so it could be a lot worse. Good boy.